Hey buddy, I'm back. I was out of commission with the flu, and it was no joke. I started out, I thought I had a common cold, and then stuff got really medieval, just shivering in the night like a sad, lonely orphan, suffering in silence. But, yeah, I'm feeling so much better. I'm very grateful. It puts into perspective gratitude. It resets your thankfulness for just overall health, because just the ability to swallow without pain, breathe through my nostrils, and to even be able to talk. I lost my voice for a few days there, so my voice is still a little bit scratchy, but it's good enough for me to speak to you. I'm still making the super edited documentary style videos. They just take a really long time to make. They take upwards of 50 plus hours to shoot and edit. I do everything myself. So in the meantime, these little chats, it's a win-win situation, because it's honestly therapeutic for me. It allows me to just stream of consciousness, speak. And it also kind of takes a step of faith, because I never know how these chats are going to turn out, if the camera's going to be in focus. But I think I'm getting better at setting up the shot to where it works. So here we are, and I have been contemplating a lot recently, and I have been thinking about, we're gonna get kind of existential tonight, just the concept of your own inner darkness. And I've touched on that before, but I've never really gone too in depth on it. But I think it is so incredibly important to come face to face with your own inner darkness. Because until you do, you're a lot more naive than you think you are. And oftentimes we read stories, or, we read about the hero and the villain, or we read history. And anytime we read those things, we're not reading it through the lens of the evil person or the perpetrator. We always assume that we would be the hero, and that's not true. And there's this fucking book, and I kept hearing about it, and I finally dove into it, and it was very difficult to read. It's called Ordinary Men by Christopher Browning. And man, that book, he basically tells the story of these men who were in Nazi Germany, and they were early 20s Nazi soldiers. And then when shit started hitting the fan, and it became the default for these soldiers to start killing Jews, it goes through the whole process of them slowly, over time, becoming those people who were taking children and women out to a field, stripping them of their clothes in the cold, and then shooting them in the back of the head. And we look at these monstrous acts, and they make us uncomfortable. But what makes us even more uncomfortable is knowing that it is statistically overwhelming that if we were in that situation, and it was us versus our entire country, and we were soldiers, that we would have done the same thing. And it is arrogant and naive to think that you would be the one person out of all those hundreds of thousands of soldiers that would have stood up against your own country, risked your own life, and risk the lives of your family to not do these heinous acts. And the crazy thing about this book is a lot of these soldiers, their superiors told them, like, hey, if you don't want to do this, you don't have to. And a lot of them, even though they were like physically ill over it, they felt like they would be abandoning their comrades if they just walked away and left the dirty work to everyone else. And so they did it, and I want you to contemplate these kinds of things. Like, these are deep concepts, and most people don't ever sit and think about what they would do in these types of situations. It's so easy to assume that we would be the hero, that we'd be the righteous one, but chances are that's not true. And in life, you need to weed out your own naivety. You have to get to a point where, you lose your innocence, you lose that naive side of yourself, and oftentimes it pushes you into cynicism for a time. It's only a little bit better than being naive, because then when you're overly cynical, oftentimes you're cynical to a point that it's not even realistic. You hate the world, you're sad, things feel pointless, and you can get stuck in cynicism. And I'm at this point in my life where I am a fucking optimist, but I'm not naive. I'm not naive at all. I have come face to face with a lot of these things. And, one of the first encounters I had with my own shadow, I was in first grade, and I still remember this for some reason. There was this kid, and he, ran at me full speed, and checked me with his shoulder, and it triggered something in me. It triggered, this primal rage. And I was in first grade. I turned to this kid, I picked him up, I slammed him on the ground, face down. I sat on his back, and I repeatedly started punching him as hard as I possibly could in a fit of rage. I completely lost control of myself as a first grader. And when I snapped out of it, I was a good kid. I couldn't believe that I had done that. I started crying. I was just it was like a mess. And, I got in trouble. The kid also got in trouble because he, checked me with his shoulder. But even still, it was just it was very bizarre and out of left field. And since I've taken the time, obviously to examine that, little boys at a very young age, any kind of temper tantrums or fits that you have, your parents kind of shut that down very fast. It's no, don't do that, it's bad. It's bad to be angry, and it's bad to and now that I have a son, there are times where I see him get really angry, and I do my best to not shut it down, but just to kind of let him feel things and explore those emotions. And I'm trying my best not to shame him, even when he's having tantrums. And obviously it's way more difficult if we're in a public place, but and I see him just sort of exploring these sides of himself. It's new to him. And when you're little and that stuff gets shut down very quickly, you very quickly start to form a shadow. And a shadow is any undesirable parts of yourself, any societally undesirable parts of yourself. You start to push them down. So anger, anything kind of malicious, aggression, you start to push those sides of yourself down, and it doesn't go away. It just essentially gets repressed, and you become unaware of it. And when you're unaware of these sides of yourself, it becomes dangerous. That's why you'll hear stories of Bob, who was a deacon at the church, and all of a sudden in a fit of road rage, he killed a guy. It's what the hell? It's what? I would never have thought Bob would do this. He was such a good, well-behaved man. Bob didn't know himself. Bob didn't have an integrated shadow. And, the idea of being holy means to be whole. You've come face to face with these different sides of yourself. You've lovingly made peace with them, and you haven't shut them away. And this allows you to become a dangerous person. You don't want to be like a declawed cat, and I think that's also why women hate nice guys, because they're so nice. It's like they don't even have the capacity to be dangerous or beat the shit out of somebody out of anger. So the key is to shine a light on all these sides of yourself, and then to have complete control over it. You become very dangerous, but you're not cruel. But in your back pocket, if your life is in danger, if the life of someone you love or your family is in danger, you have the capacity to be formidable in all landscapes, physically, verbally, intellectually. And this is how you cultivate true morality, because it's not moral just to be a pushover and just be like I said, like a declawed cat who isn't even capable of harming another person or protecting yourself. It's that idea of, I don't know what the exact metaphor, but it's like in ancient days it'd be like a dangerous samurai warrior who more often than not chooses to keep his sword sheathed, even though he's capable of unspeakable destruction and mayhem. That's the kind of person you want to be. And that can only be cultivated, man, by deep contemplation of your shadow. I'm grateful for the writings of Carl Jung. He is a Swiss psychiatrist, and this kind of stuff was his life's work, delving into the shadow. And then I'm also grateful for people like Alan Watts and Jordan Peterson, who have taken the writings of Carl Jung and have made them a lot more digestible and a lot more understandable, to where a mere mortal like myself can understand this the way that I do now, and even talk about it and share it with you. I'm not a political person, but here in the United States, the leftist liberals, they are very, very good at moral posturing and basically shaming anyone and everyone. And these are people who seem to have very unintegrated shadows. It is the concept of you're trying to take the speck out of someone else's eye before you acknowledge an entire fucking log that's in your own eye. And, it's like that's what a lot of them do. It's like they get very emotional and intense and try to cancel people who don't use other people's pronouns and shit. And at the end of the day, if I have a friend who's an individual and he or she has specific pronouns and they feel loved or they feel seen, if someone uses their pronouns, then I'm probably gonna do that, But if I mess up and instead of calling them they, I call them he, they're probably not going to try to crucify me or cancel me, all over the media and all over social media, because that's never real, and that's never coming from a place of love. And the people that try to do that to other people, that are trying to cast the stones at them, they have not come to terms with their own inner demons. They don't know what they're capable of, and they're naive as fuck. you don't want to be naive like that. Because when you're naive like that, you don't have control of your shadow. Hopefully this is making sense to you. These are just some things that I've been contemplating over the last while. I don't know if I want to go into this right now. Maybe I will. I posted a video not too long ago, and it was a mushroom trip video. And in it, I had this like manifestation, and it almost sounds like a demon possession. It's kind of scary. And all these like almost evil sides or personalities are coming out, and they're speaking, and they sound terrifying. And it was a year ago. And since all that happened, that's when I started studying people like Carl Jung. And I'm really starting to think that those sides, those malevolent voices, and that monster within me, I think those were manifestations of different sides of my shadow that were coming to the surface. And because Carl Jung talks about how these different parts of us actually have like their own autonomous personalities. And oftentimes a human being will go their entire lifespan and will never come face to face with those personalities in a very real way. But I took an 8.5 gram mushroom trip alone, and I think that that's what I came face to face with. And since that experience, I have a lot more peace, a lot more clarity, a lot more love for myself and other people, a lot less judgment. And man, the Christians found it. And by the Christians, I mean the fundamentalist Christians that take everything in the Bible completely literal. Like, they believe that just everything in it is literal. They kind of miss the point of symbolism or metaphors or the parables of just being a loving individual and having the desire to self-actualize the way that Christ did. Carl Jung calls transcendence and self-actualization, he calls it individuation. And man, yeah, when you can humble yourself and come face to face with these different sides of yourself, man, it's a whole nother ball game. And I don't judge the fundamentalist religious folks. I used to be just like them. I used to have a lot of fear in things that I didn't understand. But I believe, man, that a lot of fundamentalist Christians are like the definition of unintegrated shadow. They are terrified of darkness. And just like, okay, like pray and give it to Jesus and push it down and hopefully Jesus will take it away from you. Like, they're terrified of it, man. But usually, a lot of these fundamentalist Christians, man, I hate to say it, they're watching porn every single day. They have all kinds of dark aspects of themselves that they keep secret, that their own families don't even know about. And, they don't share that stuff, They might secretly share it with Jesus and hope that Jesus takes it away, but they don't share it with anybody else, I'm going to tell you one more quick story. This video is pretty long. I might cut it up a little bit just so you're not sitting here for 30 minutes. I got extremely high once at a gathering of in-laws when I was still married. One of my brother-in-laws, he is a chronic weed consumer, and man, he consumes this wax, this very potent wax, cannabis, and he gave me some. And I didn't realize how strong it was, man, and I lost my mind. I got so high that I was actually still blasted the next day. But long story short, when I'm in that state, all my filters go out the window. And I remember talking to my conservative in-laws. They're all gathered. And I was talking to the men who are married with children, and they're all good boys. You know, they all go to church every Sunday. They're all very well behaved. And I remember looking at them and basically saying, like, I know you motherfuckers are all addicted to porn, and you have a lot of shame, and your wives probably don't even know it, but man, you need to face that shit. You need to go within, because you're doing more harm than good. And, you know, I know that if you're honest with yourself, you're not the versions of yourselves that you really want to be. And you're scared of letting down your family, and you're scared of letting down your children and all these things, man. And I remember how, like, fucking just, like, they were just at a loss for words. And that was sort of the beginning of my, my understanding of, like, man, these people that I'm integrated with, I do not fit in with them. I am destined to shine a light on all these sides of myself and to self-actualize and to be on a journey of individuation, just like Carl Jung talked about. And so here I am right now talking to you, man. Talking to you about all these deep concepts, man. These are deep contemplations, and I would encourage you to go within, read that book, read Ordinary Men. It's not comfortable, but man, this is what will make you a moral person, a true moral person who's not naive. And that's our mission here, man. Address the individual, address yourself. And if enough of us men as individuals become better and stronger and honest, then the world's going to get better too. So, that's all I got for you tonight. I appreciate you sticking with me on this long one. You are loved. You matter. And man, you have barely scratched the surface of what you're capable of. I'll talk to you soon.
Fire burning our blood, pushing onward, but it's never enough, I know. Shake a fist at the sky with his dark clouded eyes. Tell me, can we change our fate?